Welcome to Beyond the Textbooks, the Iconic Scholar podcast, brought to you by Scholernetics 360, healthcare's first mentorship and knowledge-sharing hub. Don't leave your professional growth to chance. Instead, leverage Scholernetics 360's innovative video conferencing platform to connect leaders and specialists in your field. Select a mentor who aligns with your goals and feel free to switch until you find that perfect match. Whether you're seeking academic guidance, career advice, or aiming to refine your clinical skills, Scholernetics 360 ensures you can connect with top experts anytime and from anywhere. Visit www.scholernetics.com to join Scholernetics 360 today, because your professional growth deserves more than luck. Welcome to the Iconic Scholar podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Kessler, co-founder of Scholernetics 360. Get ready to journey beyond textbooks and learn from healthcare's brightest minds. Each episode is packed with insights and wisdom from industry leaders, uncovering the lessons and experiences that shape their careers. Join us to unlock the secrets to your successful career and discover the innovations shaping healthcare's future. Remember, while we're here to educate and inspire, we are not offering medical advice, just fun, educational, and authentic conversations. Okay, let's begin.
What is up, everyone? Edgar Garavito here, co-host of the Iconic Scholar podcast. Andrew's giving me the reins today, so I'll be flying solo, but don't worry, we've got some epic content lined up for you today. I have a very, very, very special guest who's both close to me and to Scholernetics 360. I've known Dr. Matthew Lindquist since, I believe, 2010 when we met as random roommates while he was pursuing his Doctor of Osteopathic degree, and I was working on my Doctor of Physical Therapy degree. Now, 13, 14 years later, whatever it's been, Matt is a board member of the Midwest Obesity Society, and he's a diplomat of the American Board of Obesity Medicine. I don't know what any of that is. I'll let him explain it to y'all when what all that stuff is. But the cool thing is, not only is he a part of Scholernetics 360, he's also the founder and owner of MoCan Weight Loss and Metabolic Health Clinic in Kansas City. Fun fact, after graduation, both Matt and I, because we're like best buds, we left Arizona literally at the same time together, following each other. Except this guy made a permanent stop in Kansas, and I kept going to North Carolina, and so the rest is history. But he has been an instrumental part in the development and the idea and the concept of Scholernetics 360, but I'm going to let him share all the details. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man. You got all these cool credentials that I don't think many of us know what they are and what they mean.
Edgar, man, it's an absolute pleasure. We get to obviously we get to chat and talk shop practically every day, but I know I've been bugging you for a while to actually do this. Man, sometimes I actually forget our drive away from Arizona, and you guys putzing out in New Mexico.
Yeah, well, we got the flat tire, and you kept going. Yeah, I guess the story is that we got a flat tire. You kept going. You just left us there to die. My dad
bailed.
and I.
You had your pops.
That is right, and my dog. The most important thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So after we moved out, I came here to Kansas City to do my internal medicine and pediatrics training, and so I got kind of a masochist dream, which was, dual board certified, dual training in internal medicine and peds. And during that, I kind of kept this and built this slow burn that I've had throughout my career of getting into obesity. And man, we've talked about this a ton. I just got super lucky training with one of the top peds obesity docs in the country, Dr. Brooke Sweeney, and actually the founder of the weight management clinic here in the main children's hospital here. She's actually the first author of the most recent AAP, so the pediatric obesity guidelines. So, man, I just had baller mentors when I came here, and they showed me what being an obesity doc looks like and could be. And so right out of training, I stayed on as faculty at our safety net hospital. And I founded that clinic at University Health here in KC. Got to work, one day a week at the children's hospital with my mentors. So have since, branched off, as into my own practice. So it's been an insane ride and been, huge part thanks to my amazing mentors that I, stumbled on here.
Yeah, I mean, mentorship is huge, but also the cool thing is, Matt was thinking about opening this clinic forever, and then this Scholar Index 360 idea came up, and then we both just like dove headfirst into both businesses. He just got done way before we did, but he's doing something cool down there.
I feel like we're business toddlers, that like 2 or 3 year old phase where they're,
Yes.
they might be like playing in parallel. And like that is like us in our, our like business, career where, we've been like playing with each other parallel with MoCan and Scholarnetics and just like crawling.
I think we're at the crawling phase now. Some of those reflexes are integrated. We're no longer like newborns, but yeah, it's been fun. We've learned a lot, and it's been cool to bounce ideas back and forth as we built both of those things. But with all those credentials, man, you're here to. I really wanted to pick your brain on the concept of obesity, and it's just something that I think is so prevalent not only in the United States, not only objectively but visually, right? As you kind of walk anywhere, we see a lot of overweightness in our country. But there are so many factors that go into this. Social media plays this game of like what is good, what is bad. Then there's TV. Then of course, and we have all of the Miss America stuff and Sports Illustrated. I mean, just the influence we have in this country is wild. But what I'm interested in, and for those of you who can't see Matt right now, you're not watching the video. I mean, Matt's like what? You're like 5'10" and like 140 pounds or something
I'm massive,
crazy.
dude. I'm massive.
Yeah,
like,
he's tiny. He's
like
this guy's tiny, but he got into obesity medicine.
Yeah, I'm like, I've always just been like, 6 figure. I had to bust my butt just to gain like a couple pounds, for sports back in the day, and still struggle to do the same. So, and interestingly, I actually can explain the biology of obesity and weight regulation to my patients, even in the setting of like my weight and how like I can't gain weight. It's just like literally like my genetics just kind of, I have like very protective genetics, I think of from an obesity standpoint.
And so what does protective genetics mean? Because I'm curious how your care is received by those who are obese. When do they ever show up and like, who's this skinny guy telling me that I got to lose weight? Like life's easy for him, but you want to gain weight and they want to lose weight. So you both have your own issues. Just one has, I think, a lot of more stigma behind it, right? But like, what does that mean?
You got the one question, and I think that like, for a long time, I would think more patients would kind of be like, hey, why is this like skinny white boy? Especially when I was at like the safety net hospital is, unfortunately, just a lot of, underserved, underinsured, like, minorities. And, and here I am, this like totally nerded out, skinny white boy. But I was beloved. And I think mainly just because they weren't judged. I talked to them within the context of just biology, because that's, and as a chronic disease, because that's, that is obesity. So if you're treating it or struggling with it, like you are competing with biology and evolution. And I kind of joke to my patients, like, don't compete with evolution. It's a, it's a formidable opponent.
I agree. I don't think we're ever going to beat evolution, right? So I just want to make sure that I understand you correctly and the listeners understand you correctly too, is that we're not going to beat evolution. That's just not happening. But how much of obesity is due to genetics versus lifestyle choices? Do we have a chance against evolution, or is it just one of those things where really things are changing and we don't have much control over?
What I mean is, we like, so over millennia, centuries, like the evolutionary pressures have set up these mechanisms in our body that like help us maintain our weight, lower our metabolic rate, and kind of spare our energy during times of fasting, right? Because we, many generations ago, we were mainly like hunters gatherers, right? And so we didn't have this like nonstop access to calorically dense food, and so we needed things that like, I kind of joke like if you put me and one of my patients, like if you put us in like Ireland in the 1700s, like I'm dead. And they're probably thriving and maybe like normal weight, and they have, no evidence of malnutrition, right? Because they just have a more energy efficient body. So the disease really lies within that interplay, right, between your genetics and your environment. right now, like especially in America and, and then the rest of the world with our outsourced, American diet, like, yeah, it's a problem across most of the world now too. But man, I mean, America, like we got it tough.
Yeah, and I mean, with the plethora of information now, and I think there's some conversations in the government, we're not even going to get into politics about starting to block social media for some children of certain ages because they have so much access to so many things, right? But going back to that concept that you just talked about, that you would not survive in medieval times because once again you're like 140 pounds versus somebody who perhaps was larger, they have a more efficient, energy efficient body, as you mentioned, and there's evidence that we know that in centuries ago, those who were larger were richer, healthier, wealthier, etc. We not only have access to all this information, as you mentioned, and things, but like I think at this point, most of us know that the Barbie dolls and super skinny bodies that everybody loved for so long are unhealthy. And it's obvious that we know that the very large, morbidly obese bodies are unhealthy. So where's that like happy medium? Because I think that's maybe where some of us struggle. Like, okay, I shouldn't look like that super starved, jacked person, but I can't be morbidly obese. So like, where's the happy medium?
And that's what we don't do well in our culture, right? Is that happy medium. And, this is where, man, this perfect storm with, these new meds crashing into like the American culture and fascination with like thinness, right? And that message that, particularly women, right, have been hearing forever, which is like, you're not thin enough, your skin's not tan enough or tight enough, like whatever. It's like, you're just not good enough. And then these meds come out, semaglutide, tirzepatide, and which are absolutely life-changing drugs for people with obesity, like 100%. But unfortunately, we as a medical society, we weren't ready to grab the ball. We just like haven't been teaching obesity to our med students or residents, fellows, et cetera. So we have the vast majority of docs out there know nothing about obesity. Then this again, life-changing drug comes out, and who fills the void? TikTok and med spas. And so, this is where the danger lies, is when someone who's like doing your nails or your Botox or, doing your hair is like treating your chronic disease, but they have no idea what they're doing. The only outcome they're looking for is like number go down, Dude, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and then when you talk about number, you're talking about weight go down, right?
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, and
it's
so
like the opposite of that. Have you seen the meme for like crypto?
no, but fill us in.
I just heard about this, but it's like, I think it was initially for crypto, and then now for the stock market basically. And it's just like, it's like some like kind of that like mindless, cartoonish type thing, and it just like number go up. So I think that's like, like weight loss with like a med spa now is like the opposite of that. It's just like number go down.
Number go down.
But like meanwhile they're like wasting away, like all their muscles gone. So they look gaunt and malnourished because they had no one that knows what they're doing guiding them, right?
But number go down.
Number go down.
The emphasis that we place is, yeah, you're overweight or your BMI is, etc. We wouldn't even go into this the treachery of the adequacy of BMI. But yeah, I think a lot of the focus is you need to lose weight. So I was a thicker child when I was younger, and I struggled with weight loss, and my brothers were thin. I had a primary care physician that doesn't matter if I name them or not, they're beyond retired, but it was their family doc. And eventually I decided to not go to them anymore. And I was young. And so my parents did ask me, like, did he do anything to you, et cetera? And he never did anything to me, but I never felt comfortable in this care. I felt judged. Just like you said, I don't judge my patients. But here's like preteen and eventually teenage boy who, has a large appetite, but also plays soccer, plays hockey, and plays football. And his love is hockey, dreams hockey, sleeps ice hockey. And then,
God, if only we played hockey together, Eddie.
Right?
That's the only thing missing from our relationship.
That would be, well, it's going to happen. Don't you worry. But I'm playing hockey, and I go, get just my annual physical or something like that. And again, it's just like you go to the dentist and you're not flossing, they're going to yell at you. I feel like I'm just going to go to the doctor, get my physical, and he's just going to bitch at me about how I'm still fat. And so I explained to him, like, I play hockey, I play competitive hockey. This is what I do. And this guy literally, his audacity, this is when I decided I was gone. He said to me, well, you're never going to lose weight playing hockey because you only go out there and skate hard for like a minute, then you rest. There's like no, you have to go out there and you have to run like 20 miles a week or something crazy or something. I'm like, dude, go F yourself. Like, I'm not doing this. And so eventually I stopped going them because I felt so judged. And I mean, I'm like, 13 years old, what have you. And I think that's what I love about you, that you just don't judge. But going back to what you mentioned about medical students not getting enough education about obesity, what is your thought on them not getting enough education on obesity and therefore graduating and just being judgmental instead of understanding the condition?
We have so many studies that show like exactly what you experienced, across all of society, and then, but like, unfortunately, in the doc's office, and whether it's primary care or like any subspecialist. And, in one, the data like absolutely shows if you're judged, stigmatized, show like experience bias, like you're not going to come back. So less likely to come back, actually less likely to be successful in weight loss attempts. We actually see increased cortisol, decreased like self-regulation, like all the things that, you would want and like encourage someone to do to control control obesity and their health, like go out the window once, or at least more likely to fly out the window once you've, that patient has experienced bias or stigma from you. So then, okay, so how do we get ahead of that bias? So for me, when I was at my, kind of recent former institution associated with a med school, and at the time I was actually on like the counseling curriculum, and I was trying to get obesity in our med school, so undergraduate medical education curriculum, and I had some support, but it's not like a mandate right now from the governing bodies like ACGME. And to their defense, they have so many other things that they have to kind of check off, right? That if this is not, this like mandate from a policy standpoint, and as like it's a huge ask to change curriculum for, like a big, professional school. The only thing I could do was get like an hour lecture for these med students in like their first clinical year. So at this one, it's a 6-year program, kind of like undergraduate/graduate, MD program. And so it was like the 4th year.
So like they're almost licensed at that point.
They got a couple years left, so 4 out of 6. But it's like that was like the earliest I could get in and like teach them about like just the genetics and like physiology and biology of obesity.
For 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
wild.
wild.
And then that just got dropped as I left.
So now nobody replaced you for that one glorious hour of talking about
for the
this.
one amazing hour to cover all of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we could talk about this forever. That is crazy.
So, but there are a lot more great docs out there, academics, and I know they're doing work at their institutions, and this message is getting louder, but yeah, we're still like, it's not even that we're catching up with our current or soon to graduate med students. It's like we're still getting behind, like we're not getting all of them out there and ready. And then, the vast majority of docs currently practicing, again, don't know, like we're never taught obesity. So, we've got a long ways to go in the medical field until we're like really ready to understand this disease.
Sure. And I think that's a valid point. Like we got a long way until we understand this disease. But here's a caveat. In PT school, stereotypical standard PT school is 3 years, standard medical school is 4 years. Yeah, not residency fellowship, just like the actual didactic portion. And I know, like you mentioned, some can change, but things that most PT programs lack are things like women's health, pelvic health, lymphedema, and things like that. And when students sit down and start taking their licensure exam, their practice exams, they always come back to us and like, we didn't learn about this, we didn't learn about that. And then we'll do something similar. We'll bring a specialist in to talk for them for an hour. But here's my argument with that is like, look, we can't teach you everything. Unless you want to be in school with us for 7 or 8 years, I can't teach you all this stuff about women's health and canine therapy and aquatics and wound care. And I'm speaking specifically to PT school. So your 1 hour is at least 1 hour they're getting, but it's absolutely just asinine that they only give you 1 hour, right? So my question really is here: in a perfect world, if Matt was to go to medical school board, whatever that is, and say, I want to change, we need to change this so that students get more education on obesity because it is important. Like, what changes would you make without extending medical school for more than it already is?
That's a really good question. I think I'm going to start the answer with how I start pretty much every lecture or every talk I give about obesity, which is, it's a chronic disease. So obesity is it's a chronic disease. And so, so let's fill that, let's take obesity out of there and say, okay, what would we do if this was hypertension, heart disease, cancer? Would we, like, what would we do if we just didn't talk of, like students coming out or doctors graduating medical school and they didn't know like the basics of hypertension, like we'd have problems, right? And so that's, so that's where we're starting. So, I don't need you to know like how to treat and evaluate like advanced, severe genetic obesity. That's not in the wheelhouse of every doc. Just like I didn't get taught like, advanced heart failure, coming out of med school. So, but, we should at least know the like pathophysiology. So what regulates hunger, the basics of like, okay, when we lose weight or try to lose weight, i.e., right, the class, like eat less, exercise more, of course, the, the cure all.
I mean, I'm telling you, that's worked for me in the past, but I've turned into like, little skinny person without any muscle. But,
right. That's yeah.
But the number went down. Number go down.
Number go down.
Yeah.
Until, until it doesn't, and then it comes back up.
100%. Yeah.
Because our bodies fight to maintain, they are, resilient and consistent in fighting to maintain our set point, right? So like, and we've all done this at some, to some extent, which is you lose a few pounds and it may be like 2 or 3 for some people. It may be 5 or 10 for others. And then, so they go like, 5 or 10 below that number. And then they come back up and they go 5 or 10 above, and you just like waffle up and down.
Roller coastering diet or something, right?
You stay around that weight, right? And this is coming back to like the most basic, like human biological concept, which is homeostasis.
But see, that's the thing. When you say to something like basic, I think to you and I, it is basic, right? But to many, it's not.
Right.
And so like, how do we explain that? Because even I know what homeostasis is. Well, yeah, I know. But like, even though I know what homeostasis is, like, how do I change my set point?
Oh man, that's beautiful. Okay. So first let's finish like, so what actually happens, right? And so this is getting back to the question of like, what do we need to teach? And it's this simple fact of like, that we are trying to maintain our set point. And when we do that, like if you go like, okay, I'm going to like, it's January 1st, like I'm going on my diet, whatever. When you hit that, like whatever amount of weight loss that is for you, then appetite go up.
That's got to be a meme too then.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I can't like, I guess it's going to be me and like appetite go up.
Those are the Mocan memes. There you go.
Oh, for sure. And so that's like your hunger hormone, ghrelin, like that goes. And then this huge bucket, like all these other hormones that regulate our like satiety and or what we want to eat and that feeling of fullness, they just tank. So now you're more hungry throughout the day. When you do eat, it takes more food to stay full or to like feel full. And then you will get hungry again sooner. And then our metabolism drops, like our resting metabolic rate drops. So all of the things that we don't want to happen when we're trying to lose weight happen. And that's why, throughout our entire, like weight loss diet programs, studying, we see, more than 90% of people fail, at least, and when I say fail, I mean, just in the setting of long-term weight loss and treating obesity, like 93% fail at these because of biology and homeostasis. So that's when I say, like, don't compete with evolution. Like, you can't stop, your body from trying to maintain homeostasis. It's just it is a frustrating losing battle. So, so then you get to that, your question of like, okay, well, how do I offset that? It kind of, it's very individualized, one. So think if you're, like last year, if you're like, okay, I lost my job or, got divorced or something, and I was like super depressed, and I was like kind of stopped all my normal things, my exercise, was laying in bed half the day. And then I go see my doc and they put me on this, antidepressant, another weight gainer, and maybe diet kind of, got a little worse too. Now, all of a sudden you have like, you got less exercise, less just like daily energy expenditure with just like, laying around more. Oh, okay. Then we added a medication that's going to set it, bring your set point up further. And then, your diet got worse. So now it's up a little further. Okay. So now we got like 4 things supporting a higher set point. So let's say, okay, we stop the like super weight gaining medication. Okay. Now we're down to here, but your set point was here. Like, okay, let's go back to like our healthy diet. Okay. Now it's back down here, and then, okay, then we get back to like our normal exercise routine. Okay. So now you might be back at your normal set point. So now let's say, okay, you're like, man, I've been struggling with this my whole life, right? So now, like, I need to go see an obesity doc. Not, as much as I love my med spa, much as I love my like Botox, let's leave them to, like cosmetics. Then, we start you on like an FDA approved anti-obesity medication or something with some data, then now you've got a new lower set point, right? And it's offsetting or it's preventing that like increased hunger, that hunger go up.
All the memes.
Now hunger stay normal.
I want to make sure that I understand this correctly, not only for our listeners, but even for myself, because kind of the message that I just received from what you were talking about, which is brilliant, is that if somebody wants to change their set point after, let's say, a lot of changes happen in their life, positive or negative, or whatever, and they start seeing changes in their body that they don't appreciate, aka weight gain, they need to go to an obesity doc to change their set point, aka, where their homeostatic weight is, their perfect weight. Are there things that people can do on their own without having to go see an obesity doc to change their set point and alter it without medications?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, so the big thing, I mean, let's, look at like the classic, I don't know, like stereotypical American in 2024. We've got fast food everywhere, everything is like ultra processed, right? So, even if that's like low fat chips, it's still like ultra processed trash. Soda, energy drinks, oh my God, don't get me started on like Starbucks coffee.
Not even just black coffee?
It's an ice cream shake.
Okay, but black coffee is still kosher then. Good.
Oh my God. So as an aside, since you mentioned it, so black coffee, black tea, green tea, like after water, those are like the elixirs of life especially for people with like obesity or metabolic disease, because they can help like all of the above. It's the sweeteners that get us on the wrong side of the mortality curve with those.
And when we talk about sweeteners, because I agree that those are milkshakes. Are you talking about like simple sugars or even sweeteners?
Clearly, the worst is the sugar. So for I love this. So if you can just like look in my brain right now, Eder, please.
It's not that big. I don't know if I could.
There's no space.
Small head, small brain. That's just how it is.
It's a tiny crevice behind my eyes. There was a good study a couple years ago looking at and it's really just like all cause mortality with just coffee, and it was black coffee, coffee with like, sugar sweetened and then artificially sweetened. And I can't remember like the dose, if you will, of, like how much sugar and how much artificial sweetener, but we want to be lower, right? So up, number go up, that's increased mortality. Number go down, that's improved mortality risk, like i.e. less death, which is typically a good outcome in medicine.
For most people, right?
Typically, yeah. So the sweet spot was 2 cups of coffee a day. And that was the max, like the nadir of the mortality curve. Okay. Then the coffee with artificial sweeteners, that nadir was a little higher, right? So not as good. And then the data got super messy. So it's not really clear, what happens from there, especially with like more than 2 cups and like artificial sweeteners. But we know those are associated with heart disease, cancer, et cetera. So like,
right.
Basically there's no such thing as like a healthy sweetener if it's sugar or like artificial. And then the sugar sweetened coffee, like 2, I think was like just below, the mortality curve. And then like 3 or above, and you're on the wrong side of it. i.e. you ain't gonna make it as long.
Yeah. So, for reals. I mean, I find this whole set point thing so interesting because I think the term that we use often in society is like your ideal weight is, and oftentimes it's derived by the stupid BMI thing.
Yeah, what a garbage term, by the way.
What a garbage term, right? But okay, so set point, we can change our set points both with medical help and advice, and then by doing things like you mentioned by ourselves. But then you also mentioned, set point goes up, mortality rate goes up, morbidity and mortality, which I think many of us understand that like morbid obesity means a plethora of comorbidities and likelihood of shorter lifespan. But if if somebody who's in that scenario, they're trying to lower their set point, right, become healthier, eat better, drink the coffee without sweetener, all those things. I mean, how much can they lower, or is there a data point? Because also, if we are cachectic and starving ourselves, our mortality, morbidity rate goes up too, right? So, like, what's the sweet point?
There's the problem is like starving yourself, right?
Well, maybe I used the wrong word,
well,
but
no, but you're not, because a lot of people, especially if they're on and this goes for any, like almost any weight loss medication, at least the ones that lower your hunger. But as good as these like GLP-1s and then the new, and have you heard noosh?
I have not.
Nutrient stimulated hormones. So it's kind of the new term for this class, because now we've got, like tirzepatide, for example, is GLP-1 plus GIP. And then there's like retatrutide coming down the pipeline. That's like GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. So like these are all kind of like nutrient stimulated hormones. So we're trying to kind of change their class name because GLP-1 doesn't catch all right now. But as good as these are and as effective as they are, like I could, if you come over here tomorrow and you give me the access to the right dose, like I can make sure that you do not eat anything for a week. Like that's how effective these are. If I can like go as high as possible and you're not used to them, I can completely take away your hunger. And that's where like most people don't really know the kind of the limitations with these. And again, if they're just looking for number go down, they might not see the patient who's like, if they didn't ask like, hey, I'm, been nauseous all week, vomiting a couple times, and they're, malnourished and losing way too much muscle mass. And so that's like, that is not a good outcome.
In your practice, just like any healthcare professional, and this is a really hard question to answer, I think, even for me when I think about it, evaluations and treatment plans are 100% specific to the patient, the scenario, the condition, the need. But like in general, can you give us like a just super generalized sort of like, let's say somebody comes and sees you for obesity, like what kind of tests do you run? What kind of things do you use? What kind of data do you use to derive a treatment plan?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have kind of certain questions, screeners that, I want to go over with like every single person. So that's one, I want to know, like, what's your family history like? Everyone in your family have, pretty much have obesity and like diabetes and heart disease. Okay, we're going to get aggressive. Even, if you're like a teenager and that's your family history, like, okay, if you have class 1 or class 2 obesity and your labs look fine otherwise, but that's a setting for your health, like, I'm going to be way more aggressive in treating them than the teen or young adult that follows them. And they're like, no, I'm like the heaviest in the family, but there's no cancer, no diabetes, no heart disease. And, and they're like, yeah, I exercise, I eat healthy. Like, I may just say, hey, keep rolling, man. You're doing great. So that, that family history is so critical to understand, like, what is your expectation for treatment here? Because yeah, if like 3 people in your family had bariatric surgery, like, you're not gonna be the winner from, Weight Watchers. And then, and I always, I go over meds. The vast majority of meds, if they have any action on weight, be it like, positive, weight gaining or weight losing or weight negative, usually weight gaining, right? So, so the number I see that, maybe they're like a beta blocker used for, quote, like essential hypertension with like no other like absolute indications for beta blockade. Like, that's not a great drug to treat just like basic hypertension in someone with obesity, because they can be weight gain or limit the ability to lose weight. So, right. So they're, we got another thing, another barrier for that patient. And then, I always screen for like eating disorders, vastly underevaluated in patients with obesity. Cause like, they go like, again, coming back to like bias and stigma is like, oh, how could this patient with obesity, have anorexia? I'll tell you how. They have obesity and they also have anorexia. You just didn't take a history. And then, and you're, feel like we keep not getting to your questions of like, what can we do?
I mean, it was a broad question.
I want to know, like, what are the fundamentals, right? So how's your sleep? What do you do for exercise and just activity throughout the day? Because that's got me all jacked up.
I'm all jacked up. I'm Mountain Dew.
I'm all jacked up talking about obesity, as I do. So, yeah, man, we got to come back to exercise. If not today, man, we got to talk about more, because it's so misunderstood when we talk about weight regulation.
I think we do.
General health.
I think we do, because also, again, the message that I received from that PCP decades ago, and with my background in exercise physiology and things, like I guarantee I'm just more knowledgeable than that dude ever was. But it's like, if you don't go out there and run miles a day, you're not going to be skinny and thin or whatever. Whereas I think, let's definitely leave that for another day, because we'll have you back for that. Just like, there's certain types of exercise durations, frequency, intensities, right, that really can target that's patient specific goal, which is what I heard you say in the beginning. Like, what is your goal? Because you need to make sure that the goal is realistic. Because if you come in here with all that family history and plethora of comorbidities and you say, I want to be skinny, like, well, let's make sure that we're realistic. So I think setting realistic expectations for your patients is huge.
Yeah. That's like, me showing up and be like, hey, I want to be a linebacker, like 5'10", 150. And it's like, someone, I think someone would appropriately say, good for you, Matt, but that might not be in your genetic potential. So, if someone comes in, they're like 400 pounds, but we don't do that with obesity, right? It's like, hey, you need to lose like 200 pounds. Okay. Tell me how.
And that's the thing too, like the tell me how thing, because I tell my students this often when they're learning, and they're learning, they're so in depth in learning, and then they forget that because all that they're doing is learning, and they're privileged to be in school and to have this information, that for a lack of a better example, there are hundreds of thousands of Americans out there that genuinely, and I mean genuinely, do not understand or know that eating McDonald's is unhealthy, because they don't have access to that information. So, when we talk about like this, like, this is obvious. It's like, that's not obvious to everybody.
Or take like low-fat yogurt, right?
Oh, let's go there. Yeah.
I mean, and granted, that's for the most part, to be clear, like yogurt's a great option, but but you look at it and so you take away the fat, which is like really good. Fat's fine. We need healthy fat in our diet. And, and what happens when we took that away? Like we just replaced it with sugar. So you get like that taste. So there's like, little like 4 to 6 ounce, things of yogurt that have the sugar content of like Coca-Cola, like 12 ounce Coke. It's insane. So, a lot of this is just like really good marketing, right?
I was gonna say it's marketing 100%.
Oh, my veggie straws. Like my wife and I get into like
Veggie straws are delicious. Don't get me off of veggie straws.
the hint of vegetable that, somehow allowed them to put veggie like
Stop
on their
it.
brand.
It starts with veggies. The name says veggies, so I buy those instead of Doritos.
So therefore, yeah, right. So therefore,
Well, is carrot cake not a vegetable? Come on.
Oh, absolutely, it's vegetable. Yes,
100%,
yeah,
right?
So that's how I get my vitamin A. It's carrot cake. Clearly, like we have Jack Stack. We've got this barbecue place in town that makes unbelievable carrot cake, and I'm
right. So here's the cool thing, Matt. I've known you for way too many years, and probably many more to come. And we talk crap all the time. We now not recently, at least last years, we've been talking a lot of business and investments, but I've never really had the opportunity to sit down and talk to you about what you're like super passionate about, and that's probably my fault. It's been so cool to listen to you and also to debunk the myth that you are not intelligent. So apparently you are smart and you know what you're talking about. So, which is awesome.
The myth.
Yeah, right. He just doesn't look smart, everyone. Just kidding. One, I would love for you to help us debunk the good pros, cons, if there's any pros to fad diets like paleo diets, keto diets, and all those things, because I'm sure you got opinions on that. And then
opinions I own, yes.
The last thing I want to finish on in this, just your opinion on this, man, is what is like your overarching opinion on shows like, The Biggest Loser or My 600-Pound Life?
So first, who's this? Like, yeah, was it My 600-Pound Life? Like that
Doctor.
Like it's so
that guy. Yeah. He's in a lot of memes too.
Most of it I hate.
But what do you hate about it? That's what I'm curious.
Yeah, it's how obesity is portrayed and like kind of hearing the stories of like what the producers wanted like the surgeon to say and kind of carrying forward this like the message that obesity is like the person's fault.
100%. I don't think that show ever says like it's not their fault.
And and then so let's look at let's talk briefly about The Biggest Loser. So the NIH actually funded a 6-year study on Biggest Loser contestants. Right. And so, I love this study. And I'm going to note here that Jillian Michaels may have forgotten that there was a study on her show because she butchered this recently with Bill Maher. And so one of the, like this particular study is going back to our like homeostasis, right? So metabolic adaptation and obesity as a disease, right? And so this one, they looked at like resting metabolic rate. Okay. And so they tested it at baseline, pre-intervention, show. And, and I think it was around like, their average was around like 2,600 kilocalories per day, which is, pretty high, but, they have higher lean mass. Then tested again at 1 year, they had, a lot of weight loss. And already at that 1 year mark, we started to see a difference between their calculated, so right, what we would expect, and their actual measured. Okay, so their measured was now starting to get a little bit lower than their calculated or expected resting metabolic rate. Okay, so fast forward 6 years, where they all regained within like, I think in total, like within like 1% of their starting weight. Okay. So now they're, at, day 0 in year 6, they're pretty much at the like same exact weight, but that resting metabolic rate actually dropped further from where it was at year 1. So I think at that point, it like went down to like 2,000 or something like that at year 1. And then year 6, it was like 1,900.
So we're talking about set point again.
Yes. And biology. So biology remained, evolution remained. So that was not changed. And and they removed that intervention, right? That got them to this lower weight, but nothing about their like biology or set point was changed. And then it takes over, gets them back to basically their initial weight, but now their resting metabolic rate was like almost 30% less than it was when they started. So now try losing that weight again.
Right. Not only losing that weight, but regaining that weight's got to screw with their mental health so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible.
We're going to end this on like, what can people do? Right.
Yes,
at
absolutely.
least like some tangible stuff of like what you can do as like a human to like, really just have at the very least, like have good energy, good mental health, see some weight loss potentially. And, and this is kind of all the problems in our society, in 2024, which is we don't sleep enough, we're like on our screens, up until bedtime, like me included sometimes, and I get so pissed at myself. So we need enough sleep, right? So, ideally turn your phone off like an hour before bed, aim for that like 7-8 hours, for most of us. Teens need way more. Elderly need actually significantly less. But we need good sleep, and we got to get the screens out, get your TV out of your bedroom, like whatever. And then exercise. So, the couple of things, so like main thing, like what people get really wrong about exercise is it's a terrible predictor of weight loss. So like even like an hour of exercise a day, like what most people will see in about a month is like your weight is probably going to be the same, but your energy is better, your sleep is better, you're like, man, I'm looking sexy, but then you step on the scale, you're like, what the hell? So that's, so like, as you probably know, like that's gaining muscle, burning fat. But if you're only like, if you get your blinders on, you're only looking for your number go down, like you're gonna be pissed. And so, a bunch of people stop working out because they are looking for the wrong outcome. And then where most of us, especially, and again, as we talked about, it's like, I'm in my like comfy chair. I'm like, pretty much like totally supported here. We just need to move more throughout the day. And that just regular daily movement. And if you really want to make that a superpower, you do it right after you eat. And so that helps like literally bringing like our glucose receptors up to the cell membrane to get like ready to utilize that sugar instead of like
feed me.
Yes. So it gets our like, muscles like ready to take that in and like utilize it and grow and have energy. Like it's super cool. So that could literally be like after you eat, like you walk around the house, it doesn't have to be like amazing things.
Yeah. See, that's why I want to definitely talk about exercise sometime, because that's realistic. And some people might think that, oh, like this sounds like a really cool concept. Like, I eat and then I have to go exercise, but I have to eat and like run a mile, when no, you might just walk your dog.
Like you go, like go for a walk, do like how calf raises. Like there's studies to support that.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And one of the biggest things, man, is our like fast food, ultra processed foods and sugary drinks. Like, oh God, especially sugary drinks. Like there is not like, I cannot compete with, I tell people all the time, like there's nothing I can do to compete with what that's doing to your metabolism and just your general health. Like I have people all the time, like, I don't eat anything, and I keep gaining weight. That like soda, sugary coffee, energy drinks, like it's insane what that does to like our metabolic health.
It's America, man. It's marketing, it's diet, and I think at least, one Dr. Lindquist at a time will hopefully start changing the outcome of many people. But yeah, let's have you again talk about exercise and debunking myths about diets and all those little things that little pearls that you just shared with us. It's been awesome talking to you. We're going to continue these conversations, and I'm just lucky that I have a direct line to you, because you are a brilliant dude and you're kind of cool too. And your children are just absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Mainly my kids and my wife.
Your kids. Yeah. 100%, 100%.
Right behind my kids, my wife and my dog. Like I'm right there, in my house.
Your car first and then you, for sure. Your car first and then you, but yes.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you. We'll link MoCan Weight Loss and any other your links on the show notes so people can get a hold of you if they need to. But it's been awesome, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for joining us on the Iconic Scholar podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to continue the conversation, don't forget to connect with us on social media as @ScholarNetics360. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And remember, always consult with a healthcare professional for medical advice. Until next time,